I wanted to be an actress more than anything in the whole wide world for as long as I could remember. I love TV and movies and beauty and attention and most of all, drama, regardless of its delivery method. The idea of crying as a job blew my mind. The purge, the emotional release, the hysteria. That is what I want to do when I grow up, I thought, and frequently said out loud, much to my parents' chagrin and occasional eye rolls.
Thank you for listening to Read Minnesota Books. I'm your host, Deborah Copperrood. I learned about today's guest several years ago when I heard her on my favorite podcast of all time, The Daily Zeitgeist. I am religious Sight Gang. I hardly ever miss an episode, and they publish 2 episodes a day. It's a commitment. I heard Courtney Kocak on the show, and she mentioned that she grew up in Jackson, Minnesota. I grew up in the same southwestern Minnesota I-90 corridor in Worthington. Nobody has ever heard of these places. So when you are from there and you encounter someone else from there, it is special. I have followed Courtney's career ever since, and I even took one of her online workshops a few years ago about how to start a newsletter. She's like a super cool younger sister figure in my life, and I'm excited to take our parasocial friendship to a new level today by talking to one another on the computer. Courtney is a writer, podcaster, comedian, and exhibitionist in Los Angeles. She has written for the Emmy-winning animated series Danger and Eggs and Netflix's Know It All. She's written for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, among other publications. She's a podcast producer and she hosts 3 podcasts of her own, including my favorite, The Bleeders, which is about writing and publishing. Today, she's here to talk about her debut memoir, Girl Gone Wild, out this spring from Trio House Press. The first section of the book does an amazing job capturing what it's like to be an adolescent on the southwest Minnesota prairie, especially an adolescent who just longs to live somewhere else. The driving, the cornfields, the geographic significance of every stoplight and gas station, the weirdness of the whole town turning out to watch the spectacle of the prom's grand march. I just loved the book, and I'm so happy to welcome Courtney to Read Minnesota Books.
Thank you so much for having me. That was such a sweet intro.
What is your connection to Minnesota?
Well, I was born in Mankato and then obviously raised in Jackson, and so I it was forced upon me at first. But actually, as of late, I've been so proud of the Minnesota resistance that we have seen. So it's given me a renewed appreciation for just the kind of people that live there, I guess.
Totally. Tell me about your latest project, Girl Gone Wild.
Girl Gone Wild has been a work in progress for about 15 years. As you heard in the beginning, I wanted to be an actress for the first a little over half of my life, and I had some great opportunities in that realm, but in my like mid to late 20s, I got very frustrated. I was in LA and I hate auditioning. And I just hated with acting that other people were in control of your destiny and your creativity. That drove me insane. And so I started writing as a way to create opportunities for myself and then discovered like, oh, this is the thing. And I went through a breakup around that time, shortly after I started screenwriting, and I wrote a personal essay for the Glosses I Regret Everything week. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the thing that I want to do. And soon after that, I had like a vague idea of like, I want to write a book someday. But obviously, it took 15 years to get good enough. And also, I think it's not even about craft, it's also just about like honing the wisdom that you need to
Hmm.
like actually say something in your book.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
There's an intermission section of the book where you write about the difficulty of digging through the past, watching the old films that you acted in. What was your process for accessing all of those old memories? Did you keep a journal? You write about some like post-it note type ephemera. Did you look at old photographs?
Yeah, it's so funny. When I first started writing, I thought journaling was going to be like the answer to my future book. And that's so not the truth. Like, I have some journals. It was a very important part of me growing up was just keeping a journal and like not being able to lie to myself on the page and working through relationship complications and things like that. But I actually did not even look at my journals. I thought I was going to at some point. I did. I am kind of a pack rat, so I had like the program from prom and I had like old things like that kind of ephemera. And I had some photos of like what post-its I kept. So I had a few things like that. But I used to think that I didn't have enough memories to write my book. Like, I remember I was dating this comedian and I was so jealous of him because I felt like he had direct access to like all of his past memories. And I was like, I feel like I don't have that. And actually I discovered like I have all of that. And maybe I just didn't want to remember some things.
Mm.
And but when I was ready to remember them, I found that I could remember them very fully. Obviously, you know, all of our memories are slightly skewed by our own perspective. So I did a lot of work to like, I watched the movie, I looked at papers that I had and things like that, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, like the emotional truth of it all, like I had all of that.
So you write about the bad math of trying to be a professional actor, which to me seems a lot like the bad math of trying to be a professional writer. When you just said you hated auditioning because it puts your destiny in somebody else's hands, that's exactly how I feel about pitching. But doing the gig work, seeking the gig work, doing the big jobs for very little or no money, how do you make a living now?
I was very frustrated by that for a long time too. And it's actually freelance writing has gotten even harder since I started doing it. But there are all these other avenues. There's Substack and I'm also a podcaster. I didn't really mean to become a podcaster, but as part of my writing journey, as like a vehicle for comedy, I started podcasting in 2013-ish. And so I was kind of on the early end of it. 5 years later or whatever, I was producing podcasts for other people. So that was like my way out of my day job was like first getting a writing assistant job on a show, and then I wrote on a show for Amazon, and I was like, oh, now I'm just going to be a TV writer. And that's totally not what happened. Then I had to go back to a day job. Then I started producing for different podcasts for celebrities and CEOs. And then I don't know how many years ago, a couple years ago, I just had this feeling like I'm not getting younger, obviously. And it's a lot of work to make something amazing for someone else. And I really wanted to focus on doing that for myself. And so I just doubled down on like everything that I was doing. I make some money from my podcast, Private Parts Unknown. I make some money from my Substacks. I teach writing and podcasting, which is a big part of my income. I do freelance writing. I we'll get like a random sponsorship to host a meetup, or there's a random pot as well. And all of those things combine together into like a very modest income. And luckily I'm married now, so I don't have to worry about rent in the same way that I did before. Also, I had a sort of hack before I met my husband at the beginning of our relationship too, where I was an apartment manager for like 10 or 12 years. And that meant that I didn't have to pay rent. And it did sort of eat into my time occasionally, but I was very good at juggling it. And so that really allowed me a lot of creative flexibility too. And I'm just also the kind of person that like, I'm not trying to buy new clothes. I'm not, I'm really just like trying to sacrifice everything so that I can live my artist life.
Nice. Well, thank you. Normally, I wouldn't ask somebody like, how do you
No,
make
it's
money?
good
But
to be
you're
transparent about it. Yeah.
you're very candid about it in the book, and you've had so many jobs. So thank you for that realistic picture of what it looks like to be a professional writer. You allude to your next project in the acknowledgments section. How is that going?
Great. I think it's really fantastic, if I do say so myself. I had a read from a developmental editor, like a time is becoming so warped to me during this promotional period, but maybe like 4 or 5 months ago. And I have not had a chance to dig back in since I got that feedback. But that developmental editor had also done a pass on Girl Gone Wild, and they were like, this is next level. So I'm
Oh,
like
nice.
I cannot wait, honestly, to dig back in. I have like a good, I would say half of the book working draft, and I sort of have the rest of it mapped out. And some of it I have to live yet. It's about eating disorders and about the motherhood question of am I gonna be a mother or not? And some other related themes. And it's very relevant to my life right now. And, you know, Girl Gone Wild's very much like covering a expansive period of my time. And I guess this is in a little bit of a way too, but it's dealing with more of a central question that is very present in my life right now. So, yeah, I'm really excited about it.
I look forward to reading the next book length thing from you.
Awesome.
What's your favorite part of the writing process? Do you like drafting and generating, or do you like the revision process?
I think the generating phase and the early revision phase before you have a book deal, though I feel like I'll probably have a book deal sooner in this process. But like when you're really just writing the book for yourself and you're not thinking about anybody else, that is magic to me. I love that so much. I do have a soft spot for like after I had found a home for Girl Gone Wild, and then I was revising to really try to make it like the best book it could possibly be, which was scary because I had this pit in my stomach like I'm never going to get there. I just thought I was going to have to promote the book and I was just going to feel like nauseous that it wasn't totally done. And I worked really, really hard for like, I would say 6 months. And I did ultimately get there. So I do have a soft spot for that phase too. But at that point, you've got other people's voices in your ear. You're thinking about legal things and you're thinking about how this is going to land on anybody that you write about and like how your favorite authors would receive this work and all of those things. And so it's not pure anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a necessary part of the process because I am realizing like this book's not going to belong to me anymore. Like everybody's going to put their own thing on it. Everybody's going to think of their own grandmas or their own dreams. And that's what I want them to do. And so that later revision stage is like a really good exercise in letting go.
Yeah. Who is your favorite Minnesota writer?
Well, I have to say Cheryl Strayed.
Oh, yeah.
Cheryl was so influential for me early in my writing process when I was just a baby essayist trying to figure out like what this journey was going to look like for me. I read Tiny Beautiful Things and then I read Wild, and I love Cheryl's like plain spoken prose. I also just think Cheryl's so wise, and that's not true of every writer.
Hmm.
Some people have great flair and style and they are not as deep. And I just think, her well goes so far down and she's transparent about the ugly parts of her too. And I so connected with, growing up in a little place. And yeah, she's amazing. Yeah,
Have
I
you
could.
met her before?
No, I haven't met her. I did send her an email maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago, which I have not received a response and I don't ever anticipate receiving a response, but I just needed to like say it and like
Hmm.
offer to send her the book and but I write about her in Girl Gone Wild and I thank her in the acknowledgments and yeah, she already gave me enough. She doesn't need to give me anything else.
That's a really good pick for a Minnesota writer, for sure. Are you still in touch with people who live in Jackson? I'm asking everybody about the federal occupation. I'm wondering how they have been dealing with it.
Yes. So my parents still live in Jackson and my one of my brothers lives in Jackson and some other more extended family members, my grandpa and uncle and other people like that. My mom is a retired teacher, but she still subs. And so I hear a little bit of, I think from a school perspective, I was very happy to hear that it doesn't sound like they're just like handing people over. But Jackson County is one of the counties that the sheriff's department or whatever said that they would work with the federal agents, which was disappointing. But as far as like the school system, I think they're doing their best to protect students, which, there are a number of immigrant students that need that protection. So, yeah, I don't know. Jackson is can be kind of conservative, but I was heartened to hear that little piece of it.
Yeah, that's good. So, where can folks follow you online and find news about any author events you might be doing to promote Girl Gone Wild?
Yeah, I'm posting most of my stuff. I'm at Courtney Kocak. Last name is Kocak, like everywhere on social media, CourtneyKosak.com. I mostly post on Instagram. I think I'm going to do virtual events for like the first month because I've been working so hard on the audiobook and I just need a second to regroup. And I also have just heard from so many authors like, you go to these events and, maybe there's like 10, 20 people there. And I feel like I can connect with a lot more people if I am doing Substack lives and things like that. So that's kind of my game plan. I am going to New York in May and I've got a few other things. Chicago in June. I'll probably be in Minneapolis in May or June as well. So I am excited to go out and visit. You mentioned the Bleeders at the beginning. The Bleeders is on Substack and it's also a podcast. And yeah, if you find me on the internet, you will be led to all of my other my whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I'll put links in the show notes, and everybody should follow Courtney.
Thank you so much. Great to chat with you.
Well, thank you so much. Now for my recommendations. I could talk for a long time about southwestern Minnesota, places to go, books to read, why the prairie is an underrated part of the state. But today I'm just going to recommend an author named Paul Gruco, who was around when I was a kid. He died in 2004. He wrote a great book titled The Necessity of Empty Places, which I need to reread. I'll link to a short essay of his that's online. It's called What the Prairie Teaches Us. It's super brief and astoundingly insightful. Here's one paragraph. There are thousands of species of living things on the prairie, but few of them are natives. The prairie has welcomed strangers of every kind and has borrowed ideas from all of its neighboring communities. In doing so, it has discovered how to flourish in a harsh place. The prairie teaches us to see the virtue of ideas not our own and the possibilities that newcomers bring. I'll link to the essay in the show notes. And that concludes this episode of Read Minnesota Books. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. Goodbye.